Now, I can reassure you that certainly with some of the tennis, Tosin, it is good tennis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not all of it, but
Okay.
some of it will genuinely make you smile.
Okay. All right.
Um,
Okay.
so the premise of the film is set over, I believe it's a 13-year period, and begins in 2019. Max has decided to come and give his views, even though he wasn't there because they don't let cats into the cinema.
Mhm.
Um, so it's uh, there are three main characters, two best friends who are at the beginning young men who are in their late teens, and a young woman who is on the way to be the most famous female tennis player
Yeah.
ever. She's already up there with sponsorship, and she's not going to go pro straight away. She decides that she's going to go to Stanford, and they meet at the US Junior Open, I think it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
they become they all hit it off, and as a result of it, she ends up going out with one of them. Um, Over the course of the film, you move through various periods of time where you see their relationships between each other, the breakup of the friendship between the men. She marries one of them, but relatively early on in the film, she, when playing tennis, has a fall,
Mm.
and they never quite say what happens to her knee, but it's pretty awful. And there's, with rehab, there's no way she's ever going to be able to play like that again. So she ends up becoming a tennis coach,
Yeah.
and she coaches her husband, and the who is a world leading tennis player. And
Yes.
the friend who comes from a very wealthy family has managed to really not achieve very much. He doesn't have a great deal of personal drive. He just sort of muddles on through, whereas she is an extraordinarily driven person, and she drives her husband. And you can see that this is all that matters to her in life is good
Mm.
tennis. Everything else is fundamentally irrelevant.
Yeah.
She has a child. She clearly loves her child, but I think if it were between the child and good tennis is probably going to win. So it's ultimately a very beautifully done film about three people who really like tennis, and one of whom is so insanely keen on tennis that it pretty much destroys her life, I would argue in some ways.
Yeah.
Um, it's It was an interesting one to see. We got early access with Odeon Limitless, so it was before it was out more widely.
Yeah.
And Steph, Cinema Buddy, really liked it. I was a little more ambivalent and got to the end feeling I was very glad I'd seen it, but I wasn't absolutely sure whether or not I'd liked it. But I thought it was very well done.
Yeah.
Some of it kind of grated for me, and I can't tell you why. I don't have a good reason for it. I just, there were a few things that just niggled, and I kept thinking, I don't quite know why that is as it is.
It's because of the tennis, Holly. It's because the tennis doesn't
It
look
may,
good.
it may
I
be
think
because
that's
tennis is not good enough, though. As I say, some of the tennis is good.
Okay.
But what I was interested, did I hear from you about Zendaya and her tennis playing, and that she couldn't learn? So she was unable to learn to play tennis. She had to learn all of it as dance choreography.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
So all of the moves. So when she's playing, she's dancing. She's not playing tennis,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting in terms of, is it tennis then? Not playing tennis, but is that what makes it quite beautiful? Is looking at tennis as, when you know that, thinking about it as a sort of almost as a dance.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are things like that are said by people like me who are really into tennis, and they do say, "Oh yeah, well, you know what? Everything of it It's and they do say things like that, like it's a dance, it's like a boxing match where nobody gets hit, and all that kind of.
But that's the thing that she feels as the character feels really passionately about
Yeah,
is that tennis is more than a game.
yeah. I
And
know
it's about
the things.
it's about the game itself. It's not even the winning or the losing. It's the playing that matters. And actually that bit of it is really quite captivating.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. So, Sean, I think you're about to say something.
I was just going to say that no, it's okay, Holly. It's really great that you were saying you had a few issues with it because lately you've had a really good one, and it's they've all been really good, and yes,
No, it's
good
nice,
for
and
you,
I like,
good for you.
yeah, no, you're going to be really proud of me because I'm going to give it
I
a
am
three.
proud.
I'm giving it a three.
A three. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
a good three. And
Okay,
I would recommend people saw it, but it's not going to change the world.
Oh.
And that,
okay.
but the cast were great. It was well acted. It was well put together. The story is decent. Yeah, annoyed me at times, but that's
Yes,
Yeah,
funny,
yeah.
being in the cast of tourists or whatever.
You imagine me at the cinema, Holly. If you come to the cinema with me, you'll see me cross my legs and huff and puff and think, oh my God, I'm not with this bloke.
Okay, well, so because it's funny, right? Because you're talking about it being. So I think Luca Guadagnino, he's quite sort of like I think an artistic director. He's sort of like he's sort of like he's the kind of person who would have shots that linger and all that kind of stuff. And it's with this, people have talked about the fact that that's the bit that interests him quite a bit. But there's something I saw on Twitter as a tennis fan, and there's a tennis player called Stefanos Tsitsipas. He's a Greek tennis player, and he sort of, there's sometimes when you look at his Twitter channel, you think like he's almost sort of playing up the whole angle of I am Greek, therefore I must be a philosopher, and he has all this sort of like cult philosophy on his tennis and someone just posted this and just put Stefanos Tsitsipas wrote this, and it's a Challengers review. They made it as a joke. They're like, this has to be written by him. And I just thought I'd read it to you, Holly, and see what you think.
Yes.
This is a guy called Cinema Joe who wrote it, and he was like, Challengers, he gave it 5 stars. He says, there is no sport more intimate or erotic than tennis. It is one of the few major sports where 2 players agree to partake for hours in a duel of body, mind, and soul. Naturally, to engage with one that intensely, an inescapable relationship is forged, one that intensifies with every stroke, every bead of sweat, every grunt. It may not be as fleshy as boxing, but arguably lack of contact is what makes tennis even more arousing. Is it not the anticipation of intimacy more thrilling than the act itself? So it makes sense that tennis is used as a vehicle to explore the dynamics of relationships. What do you think, Holly?
I think that is what the film intends. I certainly, yes, that is part of the intention the film has. Does that mean that is a reasonable review? Well, it did make me feel a little bit sick in the back of my throat, so that might be slightly overplaying matters, no pun intended. And it's got a bloke in it who looks like Chris Messina to continue the confusion.
Oh yeah.
Does look a bit like Chris Messina.
Oh, Josh O'Connor.
Yes.
Never mind. Okay, but I think this is quite good because a lot of the advertising for this film has centered around Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist on a bed, and the fact that you haven't mentioned that at all makes me think, okay, that's interesting because
that specific bit lasts 15 seconds, maybe.
I figured it might do. But obviously that's the big thing that
it's the way of illustrating the fact that their meeting is 2 people who are close who both like the same girl, and she says she doesn't want to break them up, and unintentionally ends up breaking them up.
Oh, was it unintentional? Anyway, but we should.
Yeah, I would recommend watching it. It is an enjoyable film. I don't think it needs to be seen on the big screen, though, in all honesty.
Ooh.